to a classy restaurant in town. As we marched in one at a time, we each were paired up with a lovely girl dressed in formal. They were coming down the other block from the other direction, and they were our dinner partners. The meal was just wonderful, and I lucked out with a very nice Christian girl. After dinner, they had a dance at the best hotel with a big Air Corps band. It was unbelievable, including a big punch bowl, which were spiked by some cute guys from our outfit. All this was arranged by the USO and/or the Red Cross, along with many chaperones. Later, just before dark, I walked my date home, met her folks, didn't stay long because we had to catch our truck back to camp. But before I left, this girl started to play the piano beautifully. So wouldn't you know, she had the music for Bless This House, which I sang to her and her family, just before I had to run. How was that to end just a great evening? Don't remember any names. It was just a nice interlude the Lord gave me before facing a very uncertain future. The following week, I was chosen to be part of an advance party along with 7 others and our lieutenant to go from old Camp Grant, Swift, Texas to Camp Gilmore, New Jersey, to get things arranged for when the rest of the company came. They arrived about 2 weeks later. We settled in for our wait before we were to ship out. They had a great USO there with dances every night. That's where I had the last ice cream for nearly 2 years. Also got a zillion shots, which really made our arms sore. Also got something off my chest. Wanted to do. Here's the story. We had a platoon sergeant we called Big Stoop. He was about 6'4" and weighed about 270, and was dumber than a door. The officers made him a platoon sergeant because they didn't know what else to do with him. His name was Pierce, a country boy that tried to look tough by having a lit cigarette hanging out of his mouth all the time. He was strong, though, because I kept trying to wrestle him down all through basic, but he always threw me every time. At Camp Gilmore, the camp athletic director brought over boxing gloves that we could play around with, and now I knew a little bit about boxing from learning from a pro when I was a kid at the Neighborhood Boys Club in Chicago, back in Chicago. So I put on the gloves and took on all comers, and they all gave up after I smacked them a few. Then came Big Stoop, Pierce. He outweighed me by about 100 pounds, but was slow afoot. I really did a number on him. Bloodied his nose and gave him a shiner, so I got even for all the times that Big Ox threw me. Then just the day before we were to board a ship, Duck and I went to the barber and got a mohawk haircut, where you get the hair down to the skin and just leave a strip down the middle. We figured our heads. It was our last dance we went to, and not many girls wanted to be near a couple of loonies like us that night, so didn't dance much. But we were with we were the main act that night. Next morning, with all our gear, full pack, a big barracks bag, but no rifle. They had their rifles somewhere else. We got to the docks by trucks, and as we started up the gangplank to this big old ship, a big army band played over there, and the beer barrel polka and stuff like that. Anyway, when I reached the deck, I looked across, and so help me, some guy ran straight across the ship to the opposite rail and threw up. Remember, we were stocked, and not a ripple in the water. That got a big laugh, I'll tell you. We all went down several decks below and wound up in a big room with many stacks of bunks, 6 high. We put our stuff in one, and Duck and I went to recon the ship. We heard a lot of chatter on another deck and came upon the biggest crap game I ever saw. Must have been 30 guys over there. I didn't have much money on me, but Duck did. So we started making lucrative side bets. Then it was his turn with the dice. He had a fabulous run and had so much money he couldn't put his hands around it. So I helped help hold some for him, about $5,000. When he crapped out and passed the dice, as this thing went on into the night, we figured there was at least $20,000 in the game. Duck lost enough so it was safe to leave and go with about $1,500. Next day, the ship got up ahead of steam, and we began moving in line with it must have been over 100 ships as part of a convoy. We only went maybe a quarter of a mile when the big engines conked out, and we were left dead in the water. So a couple of tugboats came out and pulled us back in the dock. Had to all unload and truck back to Camp Gilmore for 2 more weeks till we did it all over again with another ship called the USS Mexico, an old banana boat, which stank like crazy. Duck and I looked goofy during that 2 weeks trying to grow our hair back. Now about our convoy across the North Atlantic in 1942. That was in 1942, my cousin Bob Stitt, if you remember, he was 2 years older than me, and he got this bright idea. He he had joined the Merchant Marine instead of getting drafted. So he went to New Jersey and shipped out on one of those oil tankers. At that time, our government was sending a whole lot of tankers, ships from New Jersey down around Florida to Texas to pick up crude oil and send back around and back to New Jersey for refining, and sending to England with big trouble. But the big trouble was Hitler knew this and sent out a mess of his submarines, they called them wolf packs, to sink as many as they could. My cousin Bob saw another tanker go up in flames. He said there were men swimming in the flaming water. They had oil all over them, you know. This was in my mind as we started out our convoy. Also, Bob's description always gives me a graphic picture of what hell must be like. By the way, Bob just made one trip and quit the Merchant Marine. He was drafted in the Army a short time later. He got wounded in action in France and sent home early. Lost part of one foot. Back to the convoy. Again, 120 ships or more, spaced out with destroyers. Our destroyers were circling around all the time. We could see them off in the distance, trying to protect us from these subs. The first day out, weather was fair. I was given duty guarding a prisoner. He was working in the mess hall, and I just sat around eating canned pears and Mounds candy bars. That night, the seas got rough. We were pitching up and down like crazy. I was getting seasick. Now, the first sergeant told us not to go out on deck or be court-martialed. At about 3 a.m., I could not stand it another second. I put on my overcoat and climbed all the way back up to a door and went out on the deck. Wow! Wow! Was it? I made it to the railing, and got rid of the canned pears and Mounds and everything else, of course. Then I grabbed a guide rope and climbed halfway up a stairway and hung on to the handrails, and in total awe I witnessed God's greatness as never before. The ship pitched deep into the sea, then way up again, spraying tons of water over me and the whole rest of the ship. This was a gale we were in. No clouds, and I felt like I could touch the stars. They were so bright. The sea sparkled with iridescence. I was told that was plankton. This was the wildest, most magnificent spectacle I ever witnessed. It was a fabulous gift from God, of course. You realized if my hand slipped, nobody would ever know what happened to me. I climbed back down and hung up my wet clothes and slept well. Nobody knew what I had done during that night. Next day was still a bit windy but sunny, and I spent as much time on deck as I could. I saw dolphins racing along. We ate just a large cup of rich vegetable soup and some fruit, most every one of us of the 5 days. That's how long it took us to get over it. Anyway, off in the distance, on the 5th day, we see this green hill, and it was Ireland. And we went around Ireland and landed in Scotland at a place called the Firth of Clyde in Scotland. And we were glad to be under the protection of those English fighter planes. The last day or two, they came out to meet our convoy. In a sense, the war started for us the minute we left the shores of the good old USA. That begins our time in harm's way. Now, as I see it, how it was on the History of channel on TV, the channel, we have TV cable. Our odds of even getting to England were not too good, with all those unseen German subs stalking us. How long could I tread water, I kept thinking, if we were hit. Now, in England, we had a chance to make it to a bomb shelter if an air raid was coming, or one of those scary blockbuster buzz bombs headed our way. So we disembarked in Scotland to an English army band playing Roll Out the Barrel. Got on a train, 6 guys in a crammed into a compartment,